Starting today's news with the hottest topic of the day, with just 2 weeks left before Trump should leave his office, his supporters have decided to desperately and fiercely show their position regarding the elections, even though Trump himself earlier announced his intention to transfer the power peacefully. To get more information on the matter, we have a guest in our studio, our colleague from Voice of America, Navbahor Imamova. Hello, Navbahor. We are glad to see you here today.
Hello, Daramik. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. I have several questions, if you don't mind. So
Absolutely.
The first question is, do you think this kind of insurrection was expected?
I don't think any of us expected. I don't think any American expects violence in the U.S. Capitol, that too in the U.S. Congress, which, as you know, symbolizes great American democracy. So we can safely assume that many Americans are shocked and sad to see something like this to happen, including Trump supporters. I mean, let's not forget that tens of millions of Americans voted for President Trump. And from what we see from the public, reaction based on the feedback that we're getting from the citizens, they are upset. And they're trying to basically convince the rest of the society, the Trump supporters, that not everybody represents those people who have committed this violence. 4 people died. And that really scares a lot of Americans. That shocks the spirit of the nation. And as someone who's based in Washington, who regularly covers U.S. politics for the international community, I am sure I would be more shocked if I was there now. It's a sad picture. But despite all of that, within, let's say, 24 hours, things have calmed down, and the White House has expressed hope, and hope for peace, hope for the rule of law, and reminded the American people the basic values of the nation. And and people are hoping that things will be calmer and more peaceful from this point on. But to be clear, these supporters, people who actually pushed for something like this, will continue to shout. They'll continue expressing their dissatisfaction with the status quo, and they will continue to claim that Joe Biden did not win the elections. And that's not going to stop. And that is something that we can safely expect in the coming days.
Is there any chance for Trump to stay on power?
I would say, based on everything that I know about the U.S. politics and the constitutional system, no, because now that the U.S. Congress has certified the results of the election and basically closed the chapter of 2020 presidential elections, no, there is no way. We could be thinking of various scenarios of at least one state in the union expressed concerns about the electoral process in that specific part of the United States, or started investigating serious mishandling of the elections, or if there were a series of serious concerns about how Americans conducted their election in October and November. But we don't have any of that. The Homeland Security Department even concluded that there were no major problems basically observed during the elections, and that nothing happened that would affect the results of the elections. So I would say, again, as a reporter, as an analyst, that there's no way he can stay in power.
I have another question. The U.S. always tries to position itself as the most democratic country in the world. Can we consider all these riots, protests, sometimes bloody protests, as a face of democracy? And do people need this kind of democracy, which, as we have witnessed yesterday, ended up with the death of some citizens?
4 people, right, died, and that's a sad picture, as I mentioned earlier. I don't think any American wants this to be seen as an example of American democracy. They would vehemently argue that it's not. But democracies are messy, and they are unpredictable in many ways, and it takes hard work to maintain a democratic system. And I think America is, based on everything we know, America is going through some challenging times. And it's a huge lesson to learn, both for the American people and the rest of the world, that even the strongest democracies can have these kind of messy situations, that you can lose control, and that even the symbols of democracy, such as the U.S. Congress, can be threatened, and seats there can be threatened, and that you can have long-term presidential campaigns, like almost 2 years in the U.S., and then complicated election process, the count that takes for days and days, and then somebody will deliver a victory speech, and somebody usually delivers a concession speech. And this year, it was all very different, right? We are yet to hear a concession speech, and maybe we will never hear it this year. So you have to be prepared for these kind of situations, that you need strong precedents to secure the system. And most importantly, I would say, to secure the trust of the people. I think what runs any democracy, and that I can say based on my own experience in America for the last 20 years, that the trust of the people is everything. That's what keeps this. That's what maintains democracies. And I think when Joe Biden gets inaugurated on January the 20th, one of the things that we will definitely hear from him, from his speech following his presidential oath, that he'll try to convince the Americans that America is still on the right path, and that he'll do everything to live up to their expectations, and to make sure that the state, the union, earns back the trust that they have put in the system. And that's the most challenging thing. It is very challenging in any system, right? And many think that it's easy in democratic systems, but apparently not. My pleasure, anytime. It's great to be here. It's hard to watch all of this from here. I didn't sleep last night because, as you know, Washington is 10 hours late than us, and been in touch with Washington all day. It's hard to watch, but we're journalists. We have to be sober, we have to be objective, and we have to just keep our eyes on and see what happens next, and not make too many predictions, obviously. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming again. Thanks for your time. So, dear UzReport World viewers, we had a special guest today, Navbahor Imamova from Voice of America. Thank you for coming again.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.